we're waiting in a hotel room, very sketchy hotel room. And the money's meant to come by car, and the car gets pulled over by the police for a traffic violation. And at the same time, while the car's being pulled over by the police, the hotel room lights up with a spotlight from a helicopter, and the helicopter's flying right above the head, and the noise. And
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Pleasure.
Yes, and it's like very excited. This documentary is very it's beautiful, well done. The topics is still is very relevant as always. You know, what was like the inspiration, and why did you want to do a documentary with this topic, with the caravans, with the Mexico, and they are trying to get into the country?
Well, when we make films, we try and think about what's going to be important 2 years later. And from the rhetoric of the president, it was obvious from the very beginning of his run for presidency that he was using immigration and race as a political tool. And his rhetoric seemed to be directed at vilifying people, migrants and people of color for his own political gain. So we felt that it was important to go and see who actually was on a caravan and what were their reasons for migration and what was the reality for them during their migration. And then once we start with that theory, then if we're talking about where the push factors came from, we analyzed America's role in narcotics as a tool of policy, and how American foreign policy has continued to support corrupt and lawless regimes in Central America, and how that affected people on the ground and in Mexico.
Yeah.
For 71 years, America supported the PRI with no issue. When the PRI was a complete system of control, it goes beyond a political party. They prevent political dissension from newspapers, not by censoring them, but by reducing the supply of newspaper that they can print on. And they weren't able to print there. So, you know, it has to be said that the digital age that we're in now has led to a lot of political changes, because it's democratized where people get their information from, for better and for worse.
Yeah, especially right now that this last years, all these fake news that sometimes just appear and some of the stuff that we press cannot print, especially in those Latin America countries. I'm from Brazil, so we have the same issue. Sometimes we cannot print, we cannot tell the truth, you know, the real truth for everybody. And
I've always
talking
been
about
fascinated. I want to go back and make a film about Brazil, because I want to go back and talk to Dilma about her early career and before she was a politician.
Yeah, of course. And there is a lot of issues in Brazil. Like there is the fires on the north. There is like a lot of issues on the northeast and the south. It's a whole mess. You can find a lot of topics for different.
It's a beautiful mess, though.
And you have in Rio de Janeiro the narcos. They are really big there. So I have a list of topics for you.
I spent some time in Rocinha.
Oh,
which was
that's
super
awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I've never been inside, just outside, so it must be different. Different. I've been to another one in São Paulo called Brasilândia, which is a big one. It's a favela.
We've been shooting a thing of the response to COVID in Paraisópolis.
Paraisópolis.
Yeah.
That's great. Wow, that's great. So talking about like the Blood on the Wall, you follow Ludi, and then you also follow Sarah and her family. How did you guys gain their trust? Because it's kind of, you know, it's a two-way street. You know, you guys need to give them trust, and then vice versa. How did you come up with them?
Well, I think that we're there, and we're super persistent. And I had a connection with Ludi because I used to make a lot of hip hop videos. So she's obviously a fanatic of hip hop. You see her breaking, you see her rhyming. Maybe we could have got a DJing and doing some graffiti, and then we'd have covered the 4 essential elements of hip hop. But so I had this thing with Ludi, and we just kept meeting them, and they kept wanting to tell their story, and we're there. And I think it's she trusted with us a story because I think she felt we were being there to be. We weren't asking her to do anything. We weren't asking to do anything out there. We just wanted her to film her experience. And I think for her at that point, to a certain extent, it was an adventure. And we gave Ludi a camera to film herself, and a lot of the scenes that you see, and you see the scene at the end, she shot that film and gave it to us. We didn't shoot that because there was, we had a big issue with people saying it's unethical for us to encourage her to do that, and how could we not have stopped it, we weren't even there. So she filmed that herself and gave it to us. And the same thing with her begging for money. Jaroleando, like she sent that to us. And Sarah and Shauro, the same thing. Like they, I think that to a certain extent, people in America underestimate people's perspicacities from other countries, or who are from less developed countries, to understand, a nuanced thing like this. They knew what they were doing, and they knew that they were there, and that their authenticity and their truthfulness was what we were looking for, and was much stronger than us asking them to do things that might be stereotypical for someone on a migration.
Yeah, I think the way that you followed, the way that you did was like kind of, it was beautiful. Like, I think it was the way it was beautiful, but at the same time, I think you have a lot of challenges, not just with them, like with the subjects, but with the narcos, with all this. How was like the toughest part for you on the documentary?
Well, being on the caravan was probably physically the toughest days, because it was so hot and the days were so long and the humidity was so great, and the environment created by the federales and Ejército the army was oppressive, and on top of that, you have to walk 30 miles a day. So we would follow them, we'd walk with them, we'd go ahead and catch them, we'd interview them, we'd interview somebody else, we're looking for another potential family. We're trying to, all this time we're trying to think about how we're telling this story the most accurately that we can. And it was hot. And, I remember on the first day on the caravan, walking, I drank 12 liters of water. So
it's a lot of water.
Water. Yeah. Wow. And still felt dehydrated. And some.
Yeah. No, especially, it depends on the time of the year. You must be like, I don't know if it was summer or if it was like winter or fall. It's very dry, so it must be hard. And the editing part, I think was a challenge too. How many hours did you have of footage?
We had I think with 350 hours of footage, and we basically had a team of Spanish-speaking editors. Paula is from El Salvador. Dalia was from Argentina. Maria is Catalan. Nico is from Barcelona. So we did minimize a certain amount because we edited in Spanish and then subtitled it later, which meant we could save some time. The editing was a challenge. It took a while, but we had a great team. And this is big documentaries about managing a team and making yourself the most effective that you can be.
Oh yeah, it's very, very effective. And in the while you doing filming and doing everything, there was any moment that you felt unsafe?
There was a couple of moments. In Phoenix. The guys that we were working with there, while we were waiting for the money, we're waiting in a hotel room, very sketchy hotel room. And the money's meant to come by car, and the car gets pulled over by the police for a traffic violation. And at the same time, while the car's being pulled over by the police, the hotel room lights up with a spotlight from a helicopter, and the helicopter's flying right above the head, and the noise, and then there's lights everywhere. And then they point at us and go, "You're the police." And we're no. "We're not the police. I promise you, no. We are not the police. We are not the police. I promise you, not the police." And that took a bit of time to work through. I was like, they'd been partying a little bit throughout the interview, because, that's a Friday night for them. So, but that was a moment where my heart stopped a second. I was like, because, there's a lot of cocaine and pills and weed on the table, but there's also 2 Glock 19. So,
yeah. Oh my God.
No one pointed a gun at us, but the gun was right there.
Yeah. No. Oh my. Imagine and you need to tell them I'm not. I'm a journalist. Just a journalist doing my job, showing the world what's going on.
They asked me to say, hold on, if you have to deny you're a police officer, because if a federal agent can't lie. I was like, what? Federal agent can't lie? What are you talking about? That's only in the movies. And I'm like, no, we're making a movie, but that's a little much. And he goes, "Oh, that's true. They lie all the time." I was like, "See?" And they're like, okay. We'll calm down.
Yeah. Maybe they're watching too much Hollywood movies.
They watch a lot of Hollywood movies. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And are you working in your next project already, or we still waiting to cool this down a little bit?
No, we're working on a film now about the Diamond Princess and the COVID outbreak on the cruise ship, the first big outbreak outside of China. And then we have another film we're working on about the corruption in the LA Sheriff's Department and the gang culture in Los Angeles.
Wow. And how much the pandemic, the lockdown affected your work?
It makes it a little harder. It makes it, because we do interviews like we're doing now on Zoom, it's a little less personal. It's a little less intimate for the interviews. So the verite stuff is very hard to do now. The stuff on the ground, but the talking heads and the archive is possible. It's just difficult. I mean, we're not as challenged in the same way that movies are, because you've got to put 100 people in a room. I only have to put a few people in the room. So it's more, I feel, a responsibility to my family to not bring COVID back to them.
Yeah, it's different. I've been talking to different directors and producers, and which one has a new challenge. And I think it's a new way to do everything. Look at me here, talking to you through Zoom. Well, that's awesome.
I know, exactly. I mean, but you've got to sit down, you've got to look at statistical risk. And we look at risk all the time. And what's acceptable risk for you and what's not acceptable risk for you, and how do you minimize the risk? Wearing a face mask minimizes the risk. Seeing less people massively minimizes the risk.
Yeah.
You know, these are the, you know, so washing your hands, minimizing risk. So risk mitigate at every possible opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nick,
So,
Nick, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Muito
Yes.
obrigado.
Yeah, de nada. Wow, I'm very curious to see your this footage from Paraisópolis, and I think it'll be great. Yeah.
This day is like runs Paraisópolis, and they've responded instead of the government to the COVID crisis. They pay for the healthcare. They're paying for the response.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, PCC is for real.
Yeah, I know.
They control São Paulo. Like.
Yeah, they control. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Like they control São Paulo. Some of them control Rio. It's crazy. Well, thank you so much.
I want to do the Brazilian prison film. That's what I really want to do.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, for your talent, because you know.
Thank you so much.
Yes, that's important. It's our responsibility to have a talent like this. It's very important. Thank you.
If you like this video, don't forget to comment, to like, and subscribe to our channel right here.